Hello and welcome to Ephemera! I am fantasy author Katie Brisky.
And I'm editor Jen Albert, and we hope you are enjoying our theme music, courtesy of Alex White. Welcome to anyone joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those of you who have been here before to our virtual home. For those of you who are new, Ephemera is an award-nominated series chaired by Katie and myself.
Pre-COVID, we held events in the Glad Day Bookshop. While we await our eventual renewal and return, we are delighted to join you all here in virtual space.
We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which Katie and I live and work is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. This land is covered under Treaty 13 and is a part of the Dish with One Spoon. Today, we explore the theme of renewal, the old becoming new. It seems a fitting theme. All eyes today are on the United States with the end of Donald Trump's presidency and the inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. This change is held by many as a repudiation of fascism and Trumpism and a renewal of hope for a better and more inclusive America. Many of us here in Canada are watching the events unfolding with our neighboring country with a sense of fascination, distance, and often superiority, a dangerous and unfounded position. In order to consider positive qualities of renewal, we must also, by necessity, acknowledge its darker implications. If Trump's presidency has shown anything, it's that injustices, prejudices, intolerance, considered by many privileged folks to be old and gone, are not only alive but thriving in America and in Canada as well. Many will dismiss far-right hate groups like the Proud Boys as radical examples, but we have seen a resurgence of hate crimes across Canada, and Conservative leader Erin O'Toole's slogan of "Take Canada Back" renews Donald Trump's divisive "Make America Great Again," which is to say nothing of Canada's ongoing complicity in systemic racism and mistreatment of Black and Indigenous people. For these marginalized communities, there was never even a matter of renewal, but continuation. We can be happy to bid goodbye to a difficult 2020, of course. We should be celebrating today. It does feel like the true new year, doesn't it? But we can't simply hope for a better 2021. We must renew our commitment to each other, to community, and to positive and systemic change, which can only occur through action. As you listen to tonight's stories and watch the news over the next little while, I invite you to consider how to truly find renewal. We must not invigorate and reinvigorate old ideals and prop up unjust systemic models. We have to do better individually and as communities.
And a reminder to everyone that our code of conduct is posted online. If this is your first event, please check it out on Twitter or Facebook. And if you're so inclined, you can still feed Fred, the physically distanced donation dragon. You can find a link to our Ko-fi up at the top of our channel near the banner. There's a small icon you'll see up there. You can also find it on our Twitter and Facebook page for tonight's event. Or you can also visit ko-fi.com/ephemera reading series.
When we picked tonight's theme, renewal, it was with the hope that 2021 would be better than the year that came before it. New calendars and blank bullet journals may be an arbitrary way of marking time, but we've come through a lot in the last year. Let's seize our joys and work towards better futures whenever we can.
And to that end, we have 3 wonderful readers and a fantastic performer tonight. And it is my very great pleasure to start the program by introducing Avi Silver. Avi Silver is an author and editor of speculative fiction. They co-created The Shell Project, an award-winning indie arts collective, and are passionate about stories that wield tenderness as a tool of change. Their first novel, Two Dark Moons, was released in 2019, with the sequel due out this summer. Find their short fiction in Common Bonds, an aromantic speculative anthology. And the web serial, whoa, that's right there, they're holding it up, you'll see it in a moment. And the web serial, Tales from a Library. They're very proud to be an editor with Augur magazine.
Hi there. Thank you guys so much for having me as an American citizen. It is such a privilege to be here on this day of great renewal with all of you. Tonight, I am going to be reading an excerpt of my short story, A Full Deck from Common Bonds, an aromantic speculative anthology. So this story takes place in a Toronto where construction has gone so far that a hellhole has opened up and is now releasing demons far and wide. So in response, groups of demon hunters have come together using their powerful niches to try and get rid of this evil which has overtaken the city. And this story follows a group of hunters called the Lucky Aces who must team up with an old rival to save one of their own who has been captured. It was a good day for Cat the Bastard. Granted, most of his days were pretty good lately, what with the rate hunting was going. In the past 2 weeks, the hellhole had been crackling with all sorts of nastiness, spitting out ruthless demons at an unprecedented rate. Shops were being pillaged, possessions were at an all-time high, and the Green Line had been essentially abandoned between Yonge and Broadview. In other words, business was booming, and he was climbing the leaderboard like a particularly smug raccoon in a flood. And now Mads Dark had called on him, needing a favor. He was still deciding whether or not to bite. Being a hero kept him in pretty high demand. Behind him, an 8-bit version of Smooth Criminal began to play from his phone, the get up for real this time alarm. Cat stretched out on his bed, knocking off the clean laundry he'd piled onto it last week. Ah, well, he was going to have to put it away eventually. Especially if he wanted to bring over any partners. Human partners, that is. Demons weren't particularly picky about the state of the bed, but he needed a bit of time off from that particular vice. It took a surprising amount of energy to summon incubi and succubi for a good time. See, Cat was a negotiator. A good one. He knew how to strike a deal and how to hold others to their end of the bargain. End of the day, a little bite of his soul for the lay of his life didn't seem too bad. Was it morally reprehensible? Maybe. Did it work for him? Absolutely. He hopped off the bed and wiggled into his binder, which was tighter than his leather pants by only a very slim margin. Over in a pile of dirty laundry, Bastard the cat was working to get his belly directly in the ray of light that struggled through the basement apartment's tiny, filthy window. That's right, Bastard, Cat crooned, pulling on his studded gloves. Show him what you've got. It was almost a shame to work alone. Some hunted in teams, but not Cat. He was a lone wolf, a one-man job, too capable and yet too roguishly vulnerable to really— Cat, yelled his roommate, who might have been named Jessica. There are some weird girls here to see you. Shit, they must have taken an Uber. Cat scrambled to tastefully rearrange the piles of detritus, stuffing takeout containers under the bed, forcing his closet door shut. As he pushed aside a pile of books, he realized that the summoning runes were still on the floor. He scraped at them with his foot to no avail. Landlord was going to love that one. Cat, called Jessica. Jennifer? Again, banging on his door. Are you seriously still asleep? I need to get to class, and you have my keys. Give Cat a moment to get his face on. With an apology to Bastard, he yanked the cat's bed over the incriminating symbols. The last thing he needed was to get slapped with a fine for improper summoning. Not to mention what it would do to his reputation. He wiped off the previous night's smeared eyeliner, grabbed his black cowboy hat from the bedpost, and opened the door. Mads, he said, leaning casually against the doorframe. Bright Star. He tossed the keys to his roommate. Smooth Criminal. Would you like to come in? Mads Dark grimaced at him. Absolutely not. Danny thwacked her in the leg with her sheathed sword. Oh, golly, sure, fine, sure. Thank you. My pleasure. Cat strutted over to his vanity, sitting on the stool and gesturing for them to cram onto the small love seat in the corner. Danny perched on the arm, smoothing her dress and looking to Mads expectantly. A long silence passed. So, Cat said slowly, looking between the two of them. They were quite a sight, Danny Brightstar every bit the magical girl, and Mads Dark looking like a modern dance instructor turned assassin. The only thing their get-ups had in common were the card-shaped enamel pins, with Danny sporting the ace of spades and Mads the ace of diamonds. You need my help, Mads grunted, dropping into the love seat. At least, that's what I gathered from your voicemail. Mads made a sound not unlike the revving of an old Buick. Danny Brightstar took the opportunity to step in, rolling her eyes at her teammate. Bartok's been taken by an incubus. An incubus? Cat frowned, reaching down to pet Bastard the cat. How does that work? I thought being asexual made you immune to incubi and succubi. Lucky aces and all that? That's a misconception, Danny said, crossing her arms with dainty annoyance. We're much better hunters, for sure, but we're not all entirely resistant. I'm as close to immune as people come, and I can still sense when attraction magic is being cast near me. And gray aces don't always have an easy time of Matt's cut her off with another loud car noise. Danny pursed her lips, taking a deep breath before continuing. Anyway, that's not how it got Bartok. It's some kind of abnormality. From what we've gathered, the demon's still using sex as a lure for some allosexuals, but it's evolved its magic to manipulate romantic attraction. Cat paused, suddenly thinking back to a private summoning from about a month back. A good night. Wax play by ray of ritual candles, handcuffs, a certain incubus who stuck around for some pillow talk until the binding wore off. You're strong, the demon had purred in its many-toned voice. Not many humans have the willpower to end a night with me. What can I say? Cat had laughed, reaching for his fallen cowboy hat. I'm well practiced, desensitized to the usual lures, got strong boundaries, as the kids say. Can't let you bleed me dry in one go. I have to save some for later. Is that what humans call falling for someone? Hardly. I'm arrow as ever, pal. Cat had shrugged. Sex is more of a hobby than anything. I just know not to waste it when I have something good. He'd winked at the incubus before straddling its hips, considering how much more he could take before the fatigue started testing his binding spell. Though that would be something. What would? The incubus had scratched its obsidian claws along Cat's waist, making him shiver. What was that about willpower? Romance. If you could drain a soul through romantic attraction. Cat had shook his head, amused. From what I've heard, love is one hell of a drug. A nice date and a powerful connection, and people lose all sense of reason. First incubus to harness that would be a real nightmare. Shit. See, he hadn't thought it would listen to him. Cat looked up with a strange smile. Danny crossed her arms, tapping her fingernails in annoyance. Are you even paying attention? Oh, yeah. Sure, yeah, the incubus feeds off of romantic attraction desire that it triggers through forming a connection, sexual or otherwise. We learned that the hard way when it seduced Bartok. Danny put a hand to her chin. I think it must have known we were coming, researched us. All it needed to do was pull out some rare Magic the Gathering card, Black Lily, Lotus. That was it for Bartok. They've been stuck with the incubus ever since, under the illusion that they're in love. In Casa Loma, of all places, Mad sneered. Tourist trap. And since Bartok's demi, Danny continued, it's even riskier the longer they're trapped. It's bad enough that they're ensnared romantically. We don't need the demon draining them through sexual attraction, too. Right, Cat said, mouth gone dry. Bastard the cat swatted at his hand, demanding more attention. He cleared his throat, trying to compose himself before the remaining lucky aces realized something was up. Maybe this was his incubus? Maybe it wasn't. Either way, the 2 hunters in front of him didn't need to know what he'd been up to. So what does that have to do with me? Danny hesitated. Beside her, Mad sunk further into the love seat, not meeting Cat's eye. You are a very capable hunter. 4th best independent contractor in the city, actually, he smirked. That was a well-earned title. His proficiency in both binding and negotiating had landed him a high charisma score on the fan forums, which almost made up for his slanderously low intelligence score. The public was cruel. But if you're asking to collaborate, we've been over this dark. I'm a lone wolf. What? You egotistical shit. Mads leapt up from the couch like an irate jack in the box. I was the one who fired you. It's not a matter of ego, Mads. Cat rolled out his neck, sighing. It's just my nature. I'm too intense for most people. I'm good at what I do. Feelings get hurt. No, you work alone because you're insufferable. You lie, you cheat, you pull barely legal moves in combat with no regard for your teammates. Remember our hunt in Trinity Bellwoods? Cat did not. Oh, you got... Mads snarled, sticking her finger in his face like she was ready to curse him for 10,000 years. Let me refresh your memory. 7 hours trailing that spirit. You followed along with my plan as long as it suited you, thanked me for all I had taught you just to throw it back in my face and steal my kill shot. You compromised our safety, took credit for my work, and never so much as apologized. Cat frowned, feeling terribly misjudged. That was the hell beast in the Eaton Center? The Minotaur on the Danforth, that thing in Midtown? This is not a one-time mistake. You're a pathological piece of shit. Well, that anger can't be good for you, Mads. Yeah, well, neither can my foot up your ass, but Danny Brightstar's sword suddenly appeared between them, the ribbons on the hilt fluttering as the blade glinted threateningly in the light. Cat raised his hands, unruffled, while Mads glared holes into him. She moved no further. We need your help, said Danny, because Mads is an arrow and I can't do this job by myself. Your weapon suggests otherwise. We're not cutting down an abnormality, hissed Mads. We need to bind the incubus, learn what triggered this evolution. More demons could be disastrous for the aces. And the city, Danny added, giving Mads a reproachful look as she sheathed her weapon. Kat had always appreciated how competitive Dark was, even if it is what had put a wedge in their friendship. A very one-sided wedge. Even now she was making a face at him like he'd stuffed a cigarette butt into her Twinkie. And yes, maybe sometimes he played dirty, but so did every hunter worth their salt. He hadn't done anything worse than anyone else on the leaderboards. Except maybe influence a fuck demon to change its career path and become Casaloma's most eligible bachelor. Please, bastard, Danny said, ignoring Mads' hissing in the background. Kat, Bartok needs us, and you're our best way to them. Kat took a deep breath, rubbing his face. His conscience was a real buzzkill. Working with others had never gone well for him in the past, but he wasn't likely to get this mess cleaned up without help. And if he could pull it off without anyone knowing the incubus was his fault in the first place, that would be all the better. How are we splitting the pay? And to find out how our hubris makes things better or worse, please pick up a copy of Cotton Bonds.
Oh, thank you so much, Avi. So,
thank you.
Between the Toronto setting, the banter, and the wonderful ace puns, I feel renewed. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad. Thank you.
So, besides listening to amazing fiction, what is a good way to renew ourselves?
Well, in addition to puns, I find that focusing attention outwards and nurturing something can help.
Intriguing. Like what?
Well, plants are a good thing to start with, especially if they are virtual plants. Friends, I would like to introduce you, if technology is on my side, to our new plant child. And this is our plant child here, and we're going to take care of them. But let's just open the little package, and we've got a little plant growing. But first thing is first, we need to name our plant. What are we gonna call this little guy?
Planting McPlantface. Harold.
I kind of like Beatrice or Plantington the Third.
Those are really good names. But what about Planting McPlantface or Harold?
Or Beatrice or Plantington the Third. Whatever we name it, our plant is going to grow with the help of admiring it with this magnifying glass and playing some music, which you'll have to hear in your heart, and also saying nice things to the plant. So we're gonna leave our new friend to rest just for a little bit, but while we do that, you can vote for your favorite name for Planting McPlantface, Harold, Beatrice, or Plantington the Third on Twitter or in the chat.
We'll see you soon, little plant. And maybe it will be nourished by our upcoming performer. I'm pleased to introduce MEA the Creative Cellist. MEA is a creative cello player and improvising songwriter from Ottawa. Her songs often focus on themes of being on the outside, whether as imagined or through the eyes of an alien life form, or the struggle to integrate and accept the many selves within a person. Like many musicians, since the pandemic, her work has become a solo endeavor and provides deep comfort for her in an uneasy time. She hopes it can do the same for you.
Hi everybody, my name is MEA the Creative Cellist. I'm super happy to be with you this evening. I have 3 songs to share with you, and I was thinking about how I could connect these songs to this theme of renewal. And I'm actually going to be kind of bringing back something that I did many years with my music, many years ago with my music. I used to play along with a rhythm machine, and this was like way back when I was a teenager. And since the pandemic, I haven't had anybody to play with, so I've started basically playing with my keyboard. So my keyboard is going to be my backing band tonight, so I hope you enjoy the beats of the keyboard. This first song I'm going to play, it's called Trouble, and I'd like to dedicate this to Donald Trump on his way out the door. This is a song that reminds me of him. So this is Trouble. but not one of them words. And that was Trouble. This next song is from an album that I wrote a couple of years ago called Cyborg's Lament. And the really interesting thing about this song is that this song became the inspiration for an author friend of mine, Dorianne Emerton, who I believe some of you know and who will be watching tonight. And she wrote a beautiful novella to go with this concept of a sad cyborg who had been exiled from Earth in the year 3000, and exiled from Earth because humanity could not accept the cyborg race, and they were sent out into space, and she's looking for other cyborgs like herself because she was the last cyborg on Earth, and the rest of them were sent out into space. So this song is called Cyborg's Lament, and I hope you like it. Sorry, I just have to get my beats going here. And I have one last song for you. Thank you. I have one last song for you tonight. I'm going to be using a very tiny and adorable little thumb piano that I found at a thrift store. And this just sounds so super cute. Thumb pianos are indigenous instruments in many places in Africa. And I've just been playing around with it. It just has like 5 little notes, but it sounds so pretty. So I wrote a little song. This song is called Time. And kind of thinking about time, this song sort of describes kind of how time can play tricks on you and how it can also help you. And I think time and renewal as a theme for tonight's readings, this concept of we've been waiting such a long time. I know today I had this sort of feeling of like, oh, finally I can breathe after 4 years of feeling like we're on political high alert at all times. And so this song is kind of about how time can feel really bad and also how it can help you. So this is called Time. And hopefully you'll be able to hear this little guy. It's very, very quiet, so I'm going to put it like right next to the microphone. Time rips you in two, takes your insides, turns them blue. Time rips you in three, while you cannot see, while you think you are free. Time rips you in four, shows you the door, has you wanting more. Time rips you in five, keeps you alive, helps you survive. Time rips you in six, plays all her tricks. Time rips you in seven, takes you to heaven. Time rips you in eight, doesn't care if you're late. Time rips you in nine, you think you're fine. Time rips you in 10, then you begin again. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh man, that was so wonderful. Thank you so much, Mia.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
And
Just gorgeous.
And for those of you watching who cannot see our backstage area, which is all of you, just the collective gasp when the thumb piano started playing was really, really cool.
It's pretty.
It's so pretty.
It's so pretty. And this is just a tiny version, but yeah, it's pretty.
I love it.
I bet there was something very similar in many homes. I am wondering how our little plant friend is doing, however.
Look how tall our little plant
Beautiful.
friend is getting.
Wow!
They certainly seem to like Mia's music, which is good because we see that music is something that helps them grow. But do we have a name for our plant friend?
We sure do. It was overwhelmingly Plantington the Third.
Welcome, Plantington the Third. Oh, look, Plantington has a little bug friend, too. So the note that was attached to this plant said that somebody who loves us, I'm assuming this is a collective you, sent us this plant. And it won't die, and it will try to make us a bit happier. And that's instructions, but we know how to keep the plant alive. But who could have sent us this plant?
Maybe it was Prancy?
Or a dragon?
Maybe possibly an extraterrestrial robot?
Or a swamp hag?
Well, we have a lot of creative friends who gifted us Plantington the Third. Prancy, a dragon, a robot, or a swamp hag.
And why did it choose us? You can vote in the chat or on Twitter, and if you feel like it, write an extra sentence or two explaining our benevolent plant gifters' reasons. Tell us a good story. But while that happens, I'm just going to switch away from Plantington and let them rest, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen because that's not very exciting for all of you. I'm going, though, to introduce our next reader. Maria Haskins is a Swedish-Canadian writer and reviewer of speculative fiction. She grew up in Sweden and debuted as a writer there, but currently lives just outside Vancouver with a husband, 2 kids, a snake, a whole lot of birds, and a very large black dog. Her work has appeared in Beneath Sleepless Skies, Shimmer, Flash Fiction Online, and elsewhere. Her short story collection, 6 Dreams About the Train, is forthcoming from Trepidatio Publishing in 2021. Welcome, Maria.
Hi everybody, and thanks so much for having me. I'm going to be reading I'm going to read a story called Bioluminescence that was first published in Phobos magazine, but it is available also in this anthology, Gorgon Stories of Emergence, that was edited by Sarah Reed. So it's available in there too. Bioluminescence. The boy is sleeping. For a moment, she stands in the door, just looking at him, at the unfamiliar size and shape of his body beneath the covers. Her hair and footsteps are wet from outside. Water drips on the carpet, soaking into the floor beneath. I've been away too long. She almost turns to go without waking him. Almost. Instead, she lifts him up and carries him out of the house, across the road, to the ocean. It's farther than she remembers, and he is heavier, his legs much longer than when she carried him last time. But he doesn't wake until she lays him down on the dock. Fear flickers across his face when he sees her leaning over him. Mom? The word slips into her, beneath her skin. He takes hold. Thomas. Around them, the gray ocean heaves and breathes. She can feel its pull, its pulse and rhythm inside veins and marrow. Sitting down, she slips her bare feet into the dark water, a shimmer of bioluminescent plankton tracing her movements. Closing her eyes, she sees the continental shelf sloping out from the shoreline, the submerged mountains and plains of the ocean floor beyond. The dock is clinging to a precipice. Her toes dangle over the abyss. Opening her eyes, she sees the shadows of the things that were and are: beach and pines, house, faraway lights and windows, distant stars above. We used to sit here, you and me, watching stars. He nods. Neither of them looks up at the sky. Somewhere straight out from the dock, beyond the horizon she cannot see, is the place where she descended. She remembers zipping into her thermosuit, stepping into the elevator pod, into the familiar buzz and jostle of co-workers, leaving the choppy gray of the Northwest Pacific surface behind. Descending through the epipelagic sunlight zone, through the mesopelagic twilight zone, through the bathopelagic midnight zone, then the mining station. A sprawling artifact of metal and glass, narrow beams of light revealing groups of robots crawling like crabs over fissures and vents and sediment, mining, digging, cutting, drilling ever deeper. Endeavor Ridge, black smokers, hydrothermal vents, fault line, cobalt, nickel, copper, 6,500 feet, 2,000 meters, give or take. These numbers, these words, these names and places, she turns them over in her mind like smooth rocks left in the pocket of an old jacket found again. Does Dad know you're back? No. Thomas turns away. He is tall and angular, dark-haired, dark-eyed, changed, like me. He never wanted you to go, neither did I. You were just a baby when I left. The small child pulling at her pant leg at the door, looking up, pleading. Not a baby. I was 5. I remember it. She's lost for a moment. How old are you now? He gives her a long look. 12. She moves her feet in the water. Tide and current tug and whisper against her skin. Below is the heavy darkness rolling over the wrecks and ruins of the past. Why did you leave? He asks. I wanted to go, more than anything else. It's not what he wants to hear, but it's the truth. Yet, how can he understand? He hasn't descended and ascended through the darkness lit only by creatures illuminated from within. He hasn't twisted in the heated currents above the magma glow, or felt the gentle touch of the deep sea jelly's tentacles. He hasn't seen the sparks of blue-green fire come to life around him in the dark. You should have stayed with me. She says nothing. Thomas is quiet for a long time. Maybe he's crying. She looks at him but doesn't touch, remembering the fear passing across his face when he first saw her. 7 years. Has it been that long? What's it like down there? His voice is small and brittle. When she answers, her words are only surface, calm, still, opaque, not the dizzying abyss of memories beneath. It's cold, dark, but there is light and heat too. It's beautiful. In the water, bioluminescent sparks gather around her hands and fingers, clinging, holding on, letting go. You promised me you would come back. His voice is harder now. I came back. She moves her feet in the dark water, admiring the shimmer ignited by her movement and her skin. Mom, how did you get here? She doesn't like his tone. It's so sharp that it makes her shiver and crack. I swam, descending and ascending through the layers, through the darkness, through the light, that word calling her back. Mom. Thomas, he interrupts her. You drowned, Mom. Dad told me. When the quake hit, everything at Endeavor Ridge, that fault line, he sobs. Her thoughts blur and twist. She feels her face slip, but manages to hold on to it a little longer. Water got in. We were all drowning. She doesn't tell him about the light. She doesn't tell him about the light igniting all around her, a million tiny points of blue-green fire moving as one, its amorphous shape shifting and rippling, touching her, flickering across her skin, entering her mouth and nose, eyes and pores. She doesn't tell him about lungs and heart and skull and mind splitting apart in an instant of despair and terror, and then relief, calm, light, being something else. Why didn't you come back? You said you would. Thomas, you promised me. She looks down at her naked body, sees the shimmering cracks and veins breaking through the skin, through the surface. Yet even now, it's hard to slip this skin, harder than it should be, because he wants to see her, because he wants everything to be the way it was, because even now, he wants her to stay. I can't, she says. You promised. There is no mercy in his words, nothing to hold on to. Her face slips, limbs too. The pull of the water is too strong. The ocean beneath pulsing with the light spilling through the fractures in her skin. Thomas, but not even saying his name out loud can hold her together anymore. She glides into the water. Eyes and hair dissolve, sinews and joints give way. All she is and was is turned back to blue-green glow. Mom! A million points of light and memory gather and move as one, shimmering, ascending, descending, as the trail of bioluminescence slips away from him into the deep beneath.
Thank you, Maria. I gotta say, you always do such beautifully nuanced parent-child stories and relationships.
Thank you.
Oh, that's gorgeous. And I always feel like I take notes when I read your stuff. All right, let's see how our plant friend is doing. One moment. Almost there. There's our little plant friend. Wow, look at him go.
Woo.
All right. We're doing a really good job nurturing this plant. Look how tall little Plantington III has gotten. But who gave them to us?
the swamp hag, it looks like. And you can check out chat and Twitter for some delightful explanations. Irene has called themselves the swamp hag, and there is, woo!
Well, thank you, Irene, for this gorgeous plant. So here's the thing. We've played some music for Plantington III. I've been admiring them with our magnifying glass here and looking for the bugs, but I think there's something missing.
Well,
I think it's probably the affirmations.
oh yeah. The plant needs some affirmations. We must say some things to the plant.
Yeah, just like people, plants thrive with kind words. You could say it renews them. So we can type encouragement and affirmations to Plantington like this, which is really cute. But I'm sure even if you type them in the chat or on Twitter, Plantington III will hear them. And maybe we'll read some of your kind wishes and good words aloud to them as well. But let's leave them for... Oh, wow, they've got like a whole galaxy growing here. That's actually really cool.
It's really something.
Go Plantington.
I bet the affirmations will help very much.
Yeah.
And with that, we are nearly there. I am very pleased to introduce our final reader tonight, called Canada's Answer to George R.R. Martin by the Globe and Mail. Evan Winter, winner of the Reddit Fantasy Award for Best Debut Novel, debut fantasy novel, is a Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and Locus best-selling author of speculative fiction. His debut novel, The Rage of Dragons, is the opening to an epic fantasy quartet that begin life as a self-published novel before being acquired for republication by Hachette's Orbit Books. Most recently, Time magazine named it one of the 100 best fantasy books of all time. That is so amazing. And its sequel has received starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, Library Journal, and Booklist. Welcome, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me and letting me sort of get the chance to sit back and watch everybody do absolutely wonderful jobs. It's an honor. And yeah, I guess I'll hop right into it. I'm going to read a short section from The Rage of Dragons, which is book 1 in the quartet. Book 2, The Fires of Vengeance, is also out right now. I guess in terms of trying to deal with the topic of renewal, the overall theme of my book is sort of cycles of violence, and within the context of the narrative, there's a pretty strong, oppressive, and formalized caste system. And so the scene I'm about to read to you is one of the things that happens in this society, this very, very warlike society, is that there's lots of sort of war games to sort of build up the next generation of soldiers. And the section I'm about to read involves a group of lessers. There's nobles and lessers, a group of lessers who are sort of the lower class of citizen in the society, who have beyond all sort of reason managed to make it to the finals of this competition. It's not supposed to happen. And so they've made it to the finals and they're fighting against nobles. And the reason I'm reading this scene is because the main character, Tao, is very focused on a sort of level of personal revenge for a wrong that was done to him. And even though we're about to sort of go through this big sort of little fighting scene, the ripples of him showing that he can match what the nobles are capable of has sort of broader effects on society around him. So anyway, it's kind of a long little intro, but we'll go with it and see where we get to. This scene is called Melee. The first skirmish of the Queen's melee was chaotic. Scale Jayed was matched against the nobles of Scale Ozioma. They fought on the mountain battleground, and though the competing scales were sequestered so they could not observe their opponent's strategies, Tao had never seen the crag so crowded. The Queen's brother, Prince Zolanio Mejia, opened the melee. Both citadels were in attendance, and the northern and southern Isicolo stood empty, their initiates crammed into the area of the crags reserved for lessers. Full-blooded Ndlovu and Nahashi, as well as many private citizens, had come to watch, and an endless horde of drudge waited on them all. When it was confirmed that Queen Siora was traveling to see the games, the crags crackled with tension and energy. The Queen would watch the final day of the melee, and, thought Tao with bitterness, she'd use the occasion to meet with the gathered Guardian Council without raising suspicion. She'd leave Palm City, having explained peace to the ruling council, and she'd come to Citadel City to finalize it with the military's leaders. She'd come to begin the end of the Omehi. Over the past moon cycle, these thoughts had plagued Tao with as much ferocity as his demon visions, and the only thing that calmed him was fighting, when Tao thought he did not have time to think. Uduak, I need your unit to break that team of Ndlovu on the ridge before they flank us, Hadith yelled, receiving a grunt from the big man who set off with his men. Tao, they'll come at us again. They need to break through. Tao didn't need a strategic mind to know Hadith was right. Scale Jayed had their collective backs against an unclimbable section of the battleground. The Ndlovu had herded them here like the brainless harvest animals from the old stories. Hadith had ordered several pitched fights, but they had not gone well. Scale Jayed was unused to fighting against an equal number of nobles. This, combined with the stress of the day, the massive crowds, and the skill of Ozioma's scale, was overwhelming them. Hadith had minimized their failures with cleverness. He refused to stick to unfavorable battles and was careful to lose as few men as possible, a critical tactic in the Queen's melee, where each winning scale entered the next round with a number of men left standing at the end of their previous skirmish. Melee competitors began the tournament with 54 men. If a scale lost 10 men in round 1, they began round 2 with 44. If the same scale lost 18 in the second round, they went into round 3 with 26 fighters. Jayed, who had returned to the scale but remained distant, Anan and Hadith had devised several strategies to take advantage of the melee's rule set. The main strategy was to sacrifice Uduak, the scale's second strongest fighter, and his unit to bolster any faltering line. Uduak's unit was a reserve defense that would crash into a losing battle to save the scale. They could do this because it did not matter which man was killed in each skirmish. All that mattered were the numbers. Uduak could die in round 1 and still fight in round 2, as long as the number of fighters they fielded balanced against the number they'd lost. This was why Tao needed to win. If he could get far enough into the tournament, he was sure to face Kellen. Kellen Okar was Scale Osa's strongest fighter, and his Umkondisi would field him in every skirmish. No, Tao, stay back, Hadith hollered. Retreat! Tao wanted to hit something. Someone, maybe Hadith. We're running out of room to run. This is not where we fight, Hadith said. The ground favors the nobles. You've said that for the past span, Tao argued. You want to win? We have to fight smarter. We can't match them man for man, and the moment we go into a skirmish undermanned, we're done. We've already lost men and taken none of theirs, Tao said. 4 down in a span? That's a victory, Tao. The only victory is putting all of them down, Tao said as the time to stand and fight blindsided them. Ndlovu, screamed Utibe. He'd run into a unit of Ndlovu that had circled around Scale Jayed, and Utibe was backpedaling fast, trying to avoid being cut down by the men chasing him. Hadith shouted orders. This is it. They've split 3 ways, but their timing's wrong. The main unit is still 100 strides away, and Uduak has the rest of them engaged on the ridge. Hadith pointed at the nobles chasing Utibe and called to his scale. Stop running. We outnumber them. Full force. Kill. Words Tao had waited to hear. He raised his swords and ran at his enemy. He rushed past a backpedaling Utibe and charged the closest noble. Tao heard his scale's war cry as he leapt into the air and brought his dulled skirmishing blades together, clapping either side of the noble's helmet. The Ndlovu's momentum kept his no longer conscious body running a few steps before he collapsed, and by then, Tao was in the fray. These Ndlovu had never fought Scale Jayed. They might have heard of Tao, most in the Citadel had. They might have laughed off the stories, mocking their noble brethren who'd fallen to him. They might have told one another it would be different when they faced such common scum. They might have laughed then, in the comfort and safety of the Ndlovu Citadel. But they were in the melee. Tao was among them, and there was only pain. Tao slipped through them like the wind. Where he went, bones broke, the courageous became cowards, and always, always there were the screams of men in torment, of prey who had forgotten what it was like to be hunted. In a small way, the world changed that day when the nobles of Scale Ozioma broke and ran, scattered by a new and horrible creature, born in Numlaba, but bred in Isiogo. When the rest of Scale Ozioma caught up, expecting a trap, A few lessers in a vice, when the rest of the scale of Zioma caught up, expecting to trap a few lessers in a vice comprised of their betters, they found no such thing. The main unit of Ozioma's nobles fought hard, bravely. Yomehi rarely did less. But in losing an entire unit, the Ndlovu had taken heavy losses, and they did not understand Tao's nature. Follow him, protect him, follow, you spineless Nyoka, Hadith pointed, shouted, ran after Tao, pulling men along with him. Fought Ndlovu was almost brained and would have been if not for Yaw. And Tao was there 3 or 4 strides ahead. Fight, fight, damn you, he roared at his men. Tao's world was a haze of violence. He did not see men around him, not men, demons. But these demons could fall, and that was a glory given by the goddess. He lashed at them, swords used like bronze whips. The blades were blunt, but his brutality made him a butcher. He carved through the meat in his way with the ease of cutting through a carcass long dead. Mercy! By the goddess, man, mercy! The demon had a new trick. It could speak with the voice of men. Tao raised his swords, face twisted. He would not be fooled. Tao, Hadith called, Tao. The fog thinned, and Tao saw the noble in front of him in place of the demon. He was on his knees, shield and sword abandoned. Mercy, goddess's mercy. The man's hands were up, palms out. His head was turned to one side, eyes shut. He expected to be struck down and killed in the same way one of them had murdered Oyibo. Tao lowered his swords, breathing heavy, eyes wide, trying to see the real instead of the illusion. He saw Hadith and heard the groans of the injured. He stood in a circle of suffering, and the Ndlovu were down to a man. It's done, Tao. We won, said Hadith. Won? Asked Tao. Yes. Tao blinked, sheathed his swords, and stalked off the battleground, head down. He hadn't defeated the demons, that couldn't be done, and as if to mock his foolishness, he saw one among the tents. It was shadowed, but loomed tall above the crowds, its red eyes boring holes into his skull. Tao blinked, wishing it away, and too frightened to know if it had gone, he turned his head so it would be beyond his sight. He wound his way to the tent made up for Scale Jayed. The rest of the men would join him when they could. He knew he should be out there on the battleground, helping his injured sword brothers to the infirmary. He knew it, but he couldn't. He was so tired. The crowds beyond the battlefield were thick, but they melted away in front of him. On this side of the crags, the east side, the people were lessers. He felt their eyes on him. It was odd that so many were quiet. One of them, a low common with a gaunt face and missing both an eye and a leg, hobbled forward. He didn't speak, electing instead to tuck his crutch under his armpit so he could bring his hands together, palms touching, fingers outstretched. The man moved his hands to his forehead and held them there, saluting Tao with the reverence reserved for a wing or even dragon in Kokeli. The behavior unnerved Tao, who thought to return the salute, changed his mind, and nodded. Then it happened again. This time it was a full-blooded Ihashi who, from his look, must have been either a harvester or governor before joining the military. He saluted Tao and held the salute. Tao acknowledged the man and increased his pace, anxious to get to the privacy of his scales tents. As he went, more and more people in the crowd saluted. It all happened in silence. Not one of them said a thing, but when Tao stood in front of the flaps of his scales tent, it seemed as if everyone was saluting. He wasn't sure he wanted to look back. He told himself to continue on inside, to forget the whole thing, but he couldn't help it. He looked. In the crowd, all of them were saluting. Tao froze, unsure of what to do, and feeling relief when he saw Hadith emerging from the mass of people. The relief was short-lived. Hadith stood beside, but a step back from Tao, and whispered, "Where we fight." "What?" Tao hissed back. "Say it." "No, they're waiting." "For that?" Tao asked. "Yes, they just don't know it." "No, you do them an injustice, Tao, stealing the moment from them." "What moment?" "Give them the day." "Curse you," Tao whispered, lips tight as he raised his head, lifted his voice, and shouted, "Where we fight!" The crowd came back in a single voice that echoed through the crags. "The world burns! The world burns! The world burns! On and on and on. Tau, nostrils flared, and pulse racing, spoke only so Hadith could hear. Now what? They won't stop. Give it 4 breaths, Hadith said. I'll go in the tent first. When the breaths are done, follow me in. I should strangle you. Do it after you've waited for the full count. Hadith disappeared behind the tent's flaps. Tau breathed 4 times, heart hammering, as the crowd's chant crested. He nodded to them and followed Hadith into the tent as the lessers shook the crags with the power in their voices. The world burns! And that's that. And thank you for bearing with me. I always forget just how many fantasy terms are in a fantasy book if you start kind of down the line. So thank you.
And yet, we just dove straight into this amazing world. So CBC, if you're listening, I need this as a series as well. I need it as both.
That would be amazing.
We'll happily take that.
Thank you so much, Evan.
Thank you.
All right. Well, to finish things off, let's check on Plantington the Third one more time. Okay, let's find them. Look at them go.
Wow.
All right. I'm really proud of us. We've taken really good care of Plantington the Third. And I hope that we have done Irene the Swamp Hag very proud.
Look at how well they're growing. They keep going.
So what are some affirmations we can give them? Well, we did get some from all of you. Beginning with, bloom from the muddy swamp from whence I raised you.
Ooh. These are so lovely. We have some from chat. You are a beautiful and powerful plant. Plantington, thank you for reminding us that even small seeds have entire worlds and more galaxies within them, and that we as a community have the ability to make those things grow. I would like Plantington to know that they are an inspiration to all of us, striving for growth in difficult times.
And then we have a rhyming one. Plantington the Third is strong and green and will help to keep the air clean.
Yes.
So we had a little bit of poetry there too, and lots of bugs. Look at all those bugs.
Oh,
They're
there's
very
a few.
pretty.
Plantington, your dogged optimism and patient persistence are an example to us all. Photosynthesize to your green heart's content. Plantington the Third, we are so fortunate to have you with us. Your e-beauty knows no bounds.
Right.
Wow.
Well, I hope that you are just as kind to yourselves and your communities as you've been to Plantington the Third. It's been a really, really hard year, and it's not over yet. So remember to renew yourselves. Lots of water, fresh air, sunlight, be kind, and be safe.
Until next time, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ephemera Series, and please subscribe to this YouTube page. We'd like to thank the Toronto Arts Council and the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America for their funding assistance.
And as we close out tonight, we would also like to thank our fabulous readers and artists, composer Alex White, our friends, families, loved ones, and you. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next on February 17th, right here on YouTube.